Welcome to Walking to Maturity. I'm Uncle John. We continue the new series we started last Tuesday, and that's 5-minute biblical insights. That's just taking 5 minutes to look into the scriptures. And the first series is the book of Hebrew, and I've titled it Hebrews Demystified. So last week was simply an introduction, and today is series 301, episode 2, God Spoke Through the Prophets. So starting off in Hebrews 1 and verse 1, and we're only looking at one scripture from Hebrews today. And that in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets and at many times and in various ways. So we just need to think about that for a moment, how God spoke. And remember, of course, he originally spoke the universe into existence. But here we see him, he was speaking to the prophets. And in Matthew 13 and verse 17, "For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." So they didn't always understand, and they weren't able to see what God was actually speaking about through them. And then in John 8 and verse 56, "Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad." So in some instances, they were able to see it. And for example, Abraham actually was able to see the Messiah and what the result would be of that Messiah coming. And what is it? And in Romans 4 and verse 3, what does the scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness. So God spoke to Abraham. Abraham actually saw it, and he actually believed God. And as it says, was credited to him for righteousness. So no, he didn't accept what Jesus had done on the cross after the event, but he literally believed on him before the event. And then let's look at Ephesians 3 and verse 4 to 9. And it says, "In reading this, then, you will be able to understand my insight into the mystery of Christ." And this was Paul speaking, of course, was talking about one of the mysteries. And in verse 5, it says, "Which was not made known to people in other generations." That's what I've just said. God spoke to the prophets, but the prophets didn't always understand what was going on. And so verse 5, "Which was not made known to people in other generations, as it is now being revealed by the Spirit to God's holy apostles and prophets." So we live in a time where God has revealed those things to the apostles, the prophets, and to us. And in verse 6, "This mystery is that through the gospel the Gentiles are heirs together with Israel." And that is one of Paul's mysteries, is that the Gentiles are going to be together with the Jewish folk in salvation. And then it says, members together of one body, and sharers together in the promise in Jesus Christ. So let's read verse 6 again. "The mystery is that through the gospel, the Gentiles are heirs together with Israel, members together of one body, and sharers together in the promise in Jesus Christ." So this was something that was completely unexpected. It was a total mystery, and it had been hidden. In verse 9, "And to make plain to everyone the administration of this mystery, which for ages past was kept hidden in God, who created all things." So this was a mystery that the church was a mystery that had actually been hidden. And before the church came into existence, after Christ, that it hadn't realized it was actually going to come about. And it was something that was hidden. And then in 1 Corinthians 2 and verse 7 to 8, Paul says, "No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began." Verse 8, "None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory." So Paul says that mystery was actually hidden, and it was hidden for our glory even before time began. So God had actually planned that. He had planned that the Jews and the Gentiles were going to be saved together, and that they would be in his kingdom. But the rulers, in other words, Satan, the other rulers, didn't understand it. They didn't actually realize that this was going to happen. And as it says here, if they had understood it, they wouldn't have crucified Jesus. They wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. And then, of course, God's plan wouldn't have been put into effect. But obviously, God knows the end from the beginning, and he always would have made a way. He had that plan of salvation worked out, even though the prophets didn't actually know what was going to happen in advance. So that's all there is for today. As I say, just 5 minutes odd. And next Tuesday, we'll be talking about the Creator. So Tuesdays then 5-minute biblical insights. Thursdays the normal 20-minute Bible studies. So God bless you all, and see you next week.